2021, without a doubt, the biggest hit among all the series launched across streaming platforms was Squid Game. But did you catch all the small details and subliminal messages intentionally placed throughout the 9 episodes of the first season? For instance, when Gi-hun, the series protagonist, indulges in his horse betting addiction, he wins an amount of 4,560,000 won, which is South Korean currency. This number was already a direct reference to the number Gi-hun would receive upon entering the game, 456. The game itself consisted of 456 participants, and Gi-hun had the misfortune, or perhaps the luck, of being the very last one. Poor, or rather rich, Gi-hun. Moreover, as we mentioned, Gi-hun is addicted to horse racing, much like the rich VIPs are addicted to betting on the survival or demise of the players in the twisted game. At one point, we see them referencing the glass bridge challenge by using the knight chess piece, making a clear connection to Gi-hun's addiction, a detail that, despite being obvious, went unnoticed by many viewers. Did you spot these 2 Easter eggs from the series that's gearing up for its 2nd season? Guess what? The series even includes a reference to the Star Wars franchise. Stick with us to uncover the hidden messages and Easter eggs in Squid Game. The final secrets will blow your mind, literally. Another hidden detail in the series that many missed is related to the symbols on the guards' masks who oversee the players. Contrary to popular belief, the square, circle, and triangle symbols are not references to video game controllers. In reality, these symbols represent the hierarchy of the guards within the chain of command. After all, any large operation requires supervisors, right? Based on what we saw in the series, workers with circle masks are the laborers who handle tasks ranging from escorting players to disposing of the eliminated participants. Guards with triangle masks are permitted to carry weapons and are responsible for executing the players. They act as supervisors. Those with square masks serve as managers, relaying orders from the higher-ups and coordinating the gruesome games. I don't think I'll ever look at a video game controller the same way again. These same 3 symbols also make up the Squid Game challenge seen in the final showdown between Gi-hun and his longtime acquaintance, forming the layout for the fight's arena. The show's director is so obsessed with Easter eggs that he even included the final Squid Game challenge symbol, formed by the 3 shapes, as a hair clip worn by the creepy doll responsible for shooting players in the first game: red light, green light. And as you might have noticed, these 3 symbols appear repeatedly throughout the series, in numerous scenes. However, we're confident you didn't catch them all, as the director was meticulous in choosing their placement. For example, they appear above the gates where players pass through on their way to the first game: red light, green light. Or when the sly Il-nam arrives at the marble game arena set in a marble house where the 3 symbols can be briefly seen on the wall near him, under the watchful eyes of guards with triangle masks. Speaking of the game workers, they are responsible for removing participants in black coffins tied with ribbons. The eerie part? There's a reference to these coffins before the games even begin, when Gi-hun helps a young boy retrieve a prize from a claw machine. Inside the basket, there's a black box with a ribbon. Creepy, don't you think? This same design reappears when the police officer searches for his brother involved in the games. He finds a small black gift box with a pink ribbon, almost identical to the coffins used to collect bodies. Another undeniable connection. If you think Squid Game is one of Netflix's greatest series, drop a comment below with #game. Another interesting detail is that the players had access to all the games they would participate in before they even started, since all of them were painted on the walls of the dormitory. We can see representations of red light, green light, the sugar honeycombs challenge, tug of war, marbles, the glass bridge, and finally, the Squid Game. That's definitely a bit sadistic, don't you think? Let's now talk about the front man, the person in charge of all the guards and seemingly the twisted mind behind the game's management and creation. As we know, he is the brother of the police officer who, while searching for him, visits his residence. In one scene, we can see several books by world-famous artists on his desk. Interestingly, these books and works appear to have inspired the front man in various ways. For example, one book appears to be a biography of Van Gogh, the painter responsible for the artwork The Scream. In the red light, green light game, one of the participants even makes the same pose as the figure in the painting. In the same game, the walls are painted with blue skies, resembling the cover of a book by René Magritte that is also visible on the desk. Additionally, the setting of this game also seems to be inspired by Van Gogh's painting Wheatfield with Crows, showing just how much of a fan the frontman appears to be. We can also see that the frontman admires Picasso, the Spanish artist known for his Cubist works. This artistic influence can be observed in the design of his workspace and even in his mask. And, of course, tapping into the frontman's macabre artistic taste, we must mention his inspiration from M.C. Escher, the artist renowned for his optical illusions. particularly his confusing staircases. These clearly inspired the staircases used by workers and players to navigate between games. Another eerie touch with a nostalgic twist can be seen in how the steps of these staircases resemble Lego pieces that millions of children played with during their childhoods. Honestly, that's downright creepy, don't you think? The production of Squid Game carefully crafted connections between the lives and deaths of several important characters in the series. For example, Deok-soo is shown in one scene jumping off a bridge to escape his enemies and save his life. Ironically, this is exactly how he dies, falling to his death, clutching his partner and lover on the glass bridge. Se-byuk's death also mirrors her earlier actions. She is fatally stabbed in the neck, just as she once threatened a man with a knife in the series' opening scenes. Even the side of her neck where she is stabbed matches where she previously held the knife against the man during her time in North Korea. And, of course, we can't forget the heartbreaking death of Ali, who, just as he stole money from his boss and ran from the factory where he worked, ends up being deceived and robbed by Sang-woo, who gives him pebbles instead of marbles. That was truly a terrible thing to do. And since we know you wouldn't do something terrible like that, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. Speaking of Ali, when we see him talking to his boss, if we look at the computer screen, we can notice that the factory manager, instead of working, is on a betting website. This shows that the number of gamblers appearing in the series is quite high. And of course, this wasn't by accident, since most of the indebted participants who joined the game were there because of gambling. When the police officer reaches the place where the game files are stored, we can see that they indicate the game has been happening for many years, as there are records dating back to 1998. That means that for over 20 years, the rich have been toying with people's lives in twisted games. Furthermore, we see that among the players of the year 2020, when the series takes place, the list starts with player 002. This is yet another indication that Il-nam, who is participant 001, was involved in the entire scheme. Moreover, we can see that each file contains the details of all participants from each edition of the game. And as we observe, there are several files for each year, since the one the police officer picks up is labeled A12. This clearly shows that these game sessions are practically recurring, meaning the workers and the front man do this all year round, as if it were really a job. Got me wondering now, do they have health insurance? Another detail, still talking about the files that the police officer finds, we can see that there are at least 20 files for each year. Our guess? There might be 24, which would give an average of 2 games per month. It really takes a lot of indebted people to pull that off. Since we're talking about that old man who is actually one of the masterminds behind the twisted games in the series, it's impossible not to recall the scene where we see the guards removing his blanket and find him with wet pants. Of course, at that moment, it would be practically impossible to notice, but if we look beside his head, we'll see an empty water bottle, the same one he probably used to wet his pants and pretend he'd wet the bed. Surely this was part of his plan to appear as an innocent old man, which is the complete opposite of what or who he really was. To wrap up our list, let's talk about an incredible reference to one of pop culture's most successful franchises, Star Wars. When we discover that the frontman is the police officer's brother, and the two confront each other at the edge of the cliff, we see the frontman remove his black mask and then extend his hand toward his brother, indicating he would accept him if he wanted to join him. This is simply a reenactment of the iconic scene where Darth Vader reveals he is Luke Skywalker's father and extends his hand to his son, asking him to join him on the dark side of the Force. See, we told you there was a Star Wars reference in the series. We've reached the end of the video, but we're leaving 2 really cool videos for you to check out even more details and Easter eggs from famous movies and series.